Now, in this last video, um, like I said I'd explain kind of where this all happens, where all these get set and things like that. So, as we said before, we've got our label, we've got label, label, label. So that's basically one question. Let's see, can I minimize this window? Great. So, so label, label, radio buttons, label. So we've got, that's the first label. Hang on, I'll just hover over it, hope you can see it. That's our first label, that's our second label, radio button 1, radio button 2, radio button 3, third label. Now, what do you notice is different between this, the code here in this label, and the code here in this label or this label? That's right. This one says, these two here say text, whereas this here says text variable. What that text variable is, it is taking this information that is updated somewhere else on the fly and put into response1.var. So response1.var is whatever we've set it to here, or whatever happens here. So if they answer 1, if they choose option 1, we say response.1, sorry, response1 var. So the variable that stores response 1, we're saying that is correct. So what happens is that when we click that button, this the variable stored here becomes correct. If they choose, so let's watch that in action. If we choose that, it's saying the variable stored here is correct and it gets passed to this variable. If we choose this, then it will make it so that the variable that gets passed there is incorrect. So that's what we've got going on there for that. So that's kind of like that's pretty much what happens. So either text is updated or the variable is updated somewhere else. It's updated in the subroutine up here, and then it comes out here. So basically, that's what that label is, and that line of code happens for every question. So I've got it there for question 1, that's what it is, for question 2, for question 3. Now the very last label is very similar to that. So the very last label where it's got U scored, what we've got there is we've got a score label, just saying that that's what I just called it. It's a label, and like before, like this one, it's got text variable as opposed to text. So it's got text variable, and that text variable is score output var. Where is score output var? Well, that's up higher where it is this message. So score output var is set to this message, which is U scored, and that's hard coded in there. And it is that plus, that concatenated with, that's what the plus means, it means concatenated with a string of whatever the score is, whatever the number is converted to a string. And then that gets updated there. So that's all there is. So you only need one of these, whereas the response level, you're going to need 10. And you're only going to need one button. So just to go through how to kind of set it up, I like to have things kind of make sense. So in the graphical user interface, that's where I've pretty much got it. So question 1, 5 plus 5, 10, 11, 15, the response. Question 1, 5 plus 5, 10, 11, 15, the response. Then question 2, and so on. I think that's just an easier way to do it because I can already visualize what's happening. Then I make sure that when I pack them all, this is what we end up looking like. So this is question 1 label.pack, which is there. Question 1 pack, that's the actual question 1, which is 5 plus 5. Question 1 option 1, which is 10. Question 1 option 2, which is 11. Question 1 option 3, which is 15. And then response 1 is whatever this is, correct or incorrect. But that's the label there. And then the same thing, I did it for 2 and 3 and so on. And you guys do the same thing, but you'll do it for 10 of them. And then we've got one score, so we've got a check button at the bottom, and then the score label right at the very end, then we have our master.main loop to end. So, like I said, you guys, so this is, like I said, it's only done for 3. You guys are going to have to do it for 10. If you've got, and it is a little bit more work, it is a bit more fiddly, don't worry about setting up grids or anything like that. We'll look at that next. Just work on getting this done for this week. I've probably, in hindsight and given how things now work, I thought this would be a little bit more straightforward, but I think there's too many variables and it's just too hard with you guys getting feedback. In terms of how you're going with it. So, but what I want you guys to do is to go through, build this thing as it is, and as you're doing it, make sure you are putting in these comments explaining what the different bits of code do. So, like I said, this creates integer variables, this creates a string variable, this creates some string variables. This is a declare a subroutine which checks answers and shows responses and also prints score. And the next line for that, I'd say sets score variable to 0. The next line would be checks if q just checks the first option in question 1. And like I said, you'll do that for every block of code. So here we have second option, third option, first option in question 2, second option, third option, and so on. But that's what you need to do for all of them. And here's where you're creating your labels. Here's where you're creating your radio buttons for question 1. Here's where you're creating your labels for question 2, and so on. But that's the type of thing you also need to do. So I hope that helps. If there's any questions, please email me.